Hello, everybody, and welcome to another brand new episode of Back to Basics, where we are getting ready to just bury you in all kinds of theological debate. I am still, for those of you who are fresh off our live stream, you may have noticed I haven't even changed. I'm still Pastor Don. You know, no matter how hard I try, I'm still stuck being that dude. And I am joined by the absolutely magnificent Courtney Fraley, who is here to make our lives better. Courtney, say hi.
Hi.
So today we are getting into the second part of Exodus chapter 3, which you may have noticed we have decided to save for its own separate episode because we are talking about the most hotly debated four letters in the history of creation. That is the divine name. Oh, it's going to be a wild ride. Or it's not. I don't know. We haven't recorded it yet. So let's find out. Courtney, would you like to be our reader for today?
Sure I can. Okay. The divine name revealed is what the header says. But Moses said to God, if I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. He said further, thus you shall say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, thus you shall say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my title for all generations. Go and assemble the elders of Israel and say to them, the Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I have given heed to you and to what has been done to you in Egypt. I declare that I will bring you up out of the misery of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. They will listen to your voice, and you and the elders of Israel shall go to the king of Egypt and say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. Let us now go a 3 days journey into the wilderness so that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. I know, however, that the king of Egypt will not let you go except by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders that I will perform in it. After that, he will let you go. I will bring this people into such favor with the Egyptians that when you go, you will not go empty-handed. Each woman shall ask her neighbor and any woman living in the neighbor's house for jewelry of silver and of gold and clothing, and you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, so you shall plunder the Egyptians. I mean, given the discussion we had this weekend, I'm just kind of stoked about, get all these ladies' clothes and put it on both your boy and girl kids.
That's a whole thing. That's a whole thing to be said, to be sure. Um, but I'm guessing we
But I get
probably
the impression that's not the important bit here.
not as much, no, but there's stuff to be said there. My feel though is that people are waiting to hear us talk about those famed four letters. So before I start my rant, which I'm already suspecting is pretty much just going to be me reading about three paragraphs right out of Alter's notes here. Um, what's your initial questions?
I know too much about this stuff at this point because I'm like, I'm looking at the I am who I am and remembering what you've said about the missing letters and like just as part of the way that the writing was done at this point and being like, that's where they get Yahweh, right?
Mhm.
Like,
That's also
because
where
of
they
the
get that's also where they get Jehovah too. Um,
I mean, I
YHW
get how
I'll
I
walk you
get,
through it. I'll walk you through
yeah.
it. YHWH are the letters that we are given in the actual Hebrew of the Bible itself, which I have pulled up here. Um, the divine name as given is the Eye Asher Eye, which is not exactly YHVH. So that kind of is a different thing. The Tetragrammaton comes into being in a couple of different places here. But that is also there's a lot happening here. Um, my point being is that we get the Tetragrammaton, the YHVH, as it would be transliterated into English, because again, the Hebrew alphabet doesn't match with the English alphabet. And it's roughly a Y, roughly an H, roughly a V, H. or WH. And that gets us, if we assign vowels to it as was typically done, Yahweh, Y-A, Yah, H, Yahweh, something like that. Like, I'm approximating because, again, it's not English, but that's where we wind up with. And then you flip this over to the Greeks and the Romans in the New Testament era. They don't have a Y character. So that becomes a J, and they take their own crack at the vowels. So you get J, you get J A or J E, like yeah, ho, and then W. Well, I'm gonna have that. So V. So Yehovah. So that's their own crack at the
Interesting.
tetragrammaton. That's how we get both Yahweh and Jehovah. They're literally just two different language groups taking a crack at the tetragrammaton.
See, and I've got something kicking around in my head that's going to send me to non-existent hell.
Hmm.
Because I'm like, do you really want me to mess around with vowel sounds in yeah, what? Because I'm like, I'm just sitting here and I'm trying to place in different vowel sounds and imagine what other things it might sound like, and my garbage brain goes, Yowie?
It could be. God only knows. It could be Yowie, Yowie, or whoever knows. But it's worth noting the way this is represented too is a little bit weird. And I'm going to do an unusual here. And I'm going to just straight up read the whole chunk of shit from Alter's notes here because it's all good here. So I'm going to go ahead and read this because I want you guys to hear his take on the name here. As it's presented in Hebrew, by the way, it's Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. And God's response perhaps gives Moses more than he bargained for, not just an identifying divine name. The implications of offering one such name might be that there are other divinities, but an ontological divine mystery of the most daunting character. Rivers of ink have since flowed in theological reflection and on philosophical analysis of this name. The following brief remarks will be confined to the latter consideration, which in any case must provide the grounding for the former. I will be who I will be is the most plausible construction of the Hebrew, though the middle word asher could easily mean what rather than who, and the common rendering of I am that I am cannot be excluded. Will is used here rather than shall because the Hebrew sounds like an affirmation with emphasis, not just a declaration. Since the tenth, this is important, since the tense system of biblical Hebrew by no means corresponds to that of modern English, Hebrew doesn't have tenses in the way we think. It also is perfectly possible to construe this as I am he who endures. The strong consensus of biblical scholarship is that the original pronunciation of the name YHWH that goes on to use in verse 15 was Yahweh. There are several good arguments for that conclusion. There's an independent name for the deity Yah, which also appears as a suffix to proper names, and that designation could very well be shortened, a shortened form of this name. Greek transcriptions reflect a pronunciation close to Yahweh. In that form, the name would be the causative or the hifil form of the verb to be, and would thus have the theologically attractive sense of being translated as he who brings things into being. All of this is plausible, but it's worth registering at least a note of doubt about the form of the divine name. Here, God instructs Moses to tell Israel, Ehyeh, I will be, has sent him. The deity, if the Masoretic vocalization is to be trusted, refers to himself, gender emphasis not mine, not with a causative, but with a kal, that is a simple conjugation. This could conceivably imply that others refer to him in the kal third person as Yihyeh, he will be. The medial Y sound in this conjugated form would have considerable phonetic interchange with the W consonant language stuff. This in turn would make the name fit a very common pattern for male names in the third person masculine singular kal conjugation in perfect form. Yitzhak, which is Isaac, he who will laugh. Yaakov, Jacob, he will protect or he will grab the heel. Yiftah, which is Jephthah, he will open, and many, many others. If this were the case, then the name Yah could have been assimilated to YHWH by folk etymology and then perhaps even affected its pronunciation. Whatever the pronunciation of this name later in the Hellenistic period, by then restricted to the high priest of the Day of Atonement, Yahweh, as indicated in Greek transcriptions, reflects the original sound and is at least open to question. The logic of Yihyeh as the essential divine name would be that whereas particular actions may be attributed to humans through the verbal names chosen for them, to God alone belongs unlimited, unconditional being. This conjecture, inspired here by the use of God of the call conjugation rather than the causative in naming God's self, is far from certain, but it might introduce at least some margin of doubt about the consensus opinion regarding the divine name. That's a lot to say, but
It's a lot to say basically, yeah, we're not sure.
well, it's not just we're not
And and
sure.
then and then in the English, it's just translated to "I am who I am."
Yeah, which is interesting
Tell
because
them I am has sent you.
there is a hell of a lot more going on there than just I am. And this is like probably the best example of a case in which the English translation is, to use a technical term, bullshit. Like,
I was going to say deeply insufficient because I
yeah,
am who I am still rings true. I think it's interesting that all of the different interpretations that you mentioned seem to be right with God.
right.
Seem to be maybe that was the point.
That
Maybe it
was
was
a
like I'm
very
going to give you some stuff that you're going to spend the next couple of millennia,
mhm.
the next several millennia working out into different ways to talk about how unique God
This is
is.
this is, I think, really the key point about the divine name is that one, um, it's not necessarily just one of those. All could be accurate simultaneously. And I think where is it he said here? Like the choice of God in forming the name in this way allows God to present a name that fits within the naming context and conventions of kind of leader types, male types, obviously given the patriarchy at the time, but also at the exact same time transcends that because his use of that as fitting that convention, but also ending in a construct of the Hiffle form instead, cause was it um uh use of the call rather
A
than
construct of
the
the what?
causative. Yeah, the construction. So like it uses the prefix that fits it in with like other male naming conventions in ancient Hebrew, but it's
Yeah.
conjugated slightly differently. So it's not causative, it's in the straight like direct form called the call form here. And what that does is that transcends him from kind of tense and time and situation in a way that other names don't. So it's reflective of the patriarchal structure at the time, but it's also totally different from it. It's able to be both at once.
See, I'm gonna be useless as Bible study because my brain keeps taking stupid little tangents. I'm like, oh, so it's like how like teenage me was accidentally being profound instead of goofy by trying to form the Spanish sentence "the cat is in the swimming pool," but because I didn't know about it yet, using es instead of está, which implies that the cat's existence is within the swimming pool. It is
Mhm.
part of the swimming pool. It has always been. It's not simply its location. The cat is in the swimming pool.
Yeah, and that kind of linguistic transcendence times about a million here is what's happening with the
Yeah,
name.
yeah. That's just language is so wild. And it again, if I can, you rant all the time. I can rant. I stump about this so often to anyone who
Oh,
will
Queen.
listen. We're reading a translation of a translation, most likely. Like, and it's so far removed. Like, if you got to study for years to be an expert and properly understand like all of Shakespeare, and that's in our language from a few hundred years ago. Like, let's go a few thousand years ago and let's go a language nothing like English.
Mhm.
And like let's sit around and say how, oh, well, I'm going to thump this Bible at you and look at this verse here. It says you're a bad person. Does it? Does it, Jimbo? Does it fucking really? Okay, I'm done. Ugh.
Look, I had my time to go off on the live stream. You get your chance to go off here. That's fine. No, I think it's also worth remembering too that this is ancient Hebrew we're talking about, not just any language. Like English is a highly structured, very logical by our modern sensibilities language.
That's the
Ancient
nicest thing you've ever said about the English language.
goddamn dumpster fire is what comes to mind, but I wasn't going to say that. My point is that
It's a collage, okay?
decoupage, the language. Um, my my point here is that ancient Hebrew doesn't follow any of the rules that we think are constant. I glossed over this earlier when I was reading from Alter here. Hebrew doesn't have temporal verb tenses. Like past, present, future, they don't exist in Hebrew. Like the language doesn't operate that way. So it's incredibly hard for us to wrap ourselves around the ways that ancient Hebrew is set up to express things. And once we start doing that, we realize that it leaves open the door for a lot of other different types of linguistic and structural variation through prefixes and suffixes and other kind of implications that are tied to it that we just can't do in English. Which is why I am who I am is woefully insufficient as a translation of what God's saying here, because God is saying about a billion different things simultaneously that are summed up in the few words of a language that's kind of actually able to do that in a way that English never can. I like
So
ancient.
basically, God is a Time Lord name and it doesn't translate.
Yeah, exactly. If they ever reveal the name of the doctor and it's not in ancient Hebrew, I will be disappointed. I'll be doubly disappointed if it turns out to be like what Alpha Sigma or whatever the claim is. But that's a story for a different time. No, Beta Sigma. That's what it was. Come
Theta.
take me.
It was Theta.
Oh, Theta. Okay. God, I was like,
Sigma.
God, I hope it's not Beta Sigma because given the internet discourse these days, it would be the worst things for the doctor to be.
No, no, it was Theta Sigma
That was the
and
one.
or Theta Sigma with the accent and pronunciation. And yes, I am that big of a Doctor Who nerd.
I couldn't remember
I
which was the
currently
first
hide it
character.
well. Catch me a decade ago, it was not hidden very well.
Oh yeah, I definitely hide my geekery well. I have no idea what you're talking about.
At least you're not wearing the coat today. Anyway, so
Yeah, it's like 30 degrees
what
outside. I'm
about the
not wearing a
rest of
coat.
this?
Yeah, let's go ahead and tear through this.
I also am interesting again, like, I'm going to send you to this land with all these people in it, a land flowing with milk and honey. Narrator, they would kill the people.
So I'm going to take a look at this here. So, well, you get say, given heed, you declare that I'll bring you out of these. Listen to your voice. Right. I think it's worth noting too that the motion that's happening here that God is outlining here, starting from verse 16, bring the elders together, tell them that God is giving heed to you, has heard what's happening to you. I'm going to bring you out of Israelite. I'm going to bring you out of Egypt. I'm going to bring you into this land over here with the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, and it's flowing with milk and honey. Best place ever. Um, Verse 18, they will listen to your voice, and you and the elders of Israel shall go to the king of Egypt and say to him, this is what's going to happen. So I'm going to send you to the elders. The elders are going to listen to you. You're going to go to the king and tell him this. Um, but this is God then saying, you're going to do this. Motherfucker ain't going to listen to you. Like, he is not going to listen to you. I want him to. He should, but it's going to take a mighty hand. So I'm going to stretch out my mighty hand because I happen to have a couple of those handy. Huh, no pun intended. And I'm going to start slapping them around until they do the thing. And at the end, and this is connected to what happens later in the Exodus, so it may have been added as kind of like a reference, like an epic foreshadowing bit, and may not necessarily be part of the divine calling here. But each woman will ask her neighbor, and any woman living in the neighbor's house for jewelry and silver. You'll take whatever the hell you want, and they'll basically what God is saying here is they will let you leave with whatever the hell you want, so long as you get out of there by the time I'm done with them.
Nice.
Yeah, that's basically the gist of it. Um, and let's see, I'm going to bring this bit out of altar here as well. There is kind of a unique thing happening here in that neighbor and sojourner, and the other terms that are used at the end here are feminine nouns, which is related to a social phenomenon of late antiquity where women constitute the porous boundary between adjacent ethnic communities, borrowers of the proverbial cup of sugar, if you will. So that I think is really interesting that it's highlighting on the cultural exchange between the Egyptians and the Israelites being mediated by the household women and not by the male politicians. Like they're going to give you whatever they want to get you the hell out of town, but the men are going to be too goddamn proud to do it. So the women are going to facilitate this. So that's kind of what's being hinted at there with that as well.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is a little bit. Like Pharaoh's going to be too damn proud. He may finally let you go, but then he's going to chase after you with a bunch of chariots, and I'm going to drown. But like the actual work of it's going to be done by the ladies because of course it is.
I shall
So
withhold comment. Because
why? What is the point of this if you're going to withhold comment?
I don't need to.
Oh, fine.
It doesn't need saying. We know.
Yeah. Anything else you want to play at here?
No, no, I think we've covered this one pretty good.
All right. All right, folks. I guess that is it for today. I think we've covered it in a reasonably timely fashion, considering the content. I'm quite pleased with that. Well done, us.
It's
Um,
half a chapter. We managed to talk for like what, half an hour, 40 minutes.
yeah, something like that. But we've done worse. We've done worse. Those of you who are still watching, thanks for sticking around. Discord server is the place to be. Come join us in that place. If you are local to our church in Japan, you may notice these episodes are coming out in the summer. Online, it kind of slows down a bit during the summer months because that's when we kind of do a lot of the in-person stuff. So if you are local to the church, come join us for the in-person stuff. We've got events that are going to be popping off. We've got see quite a lot of things. I can't talk about them a whole lot yet because as we're recording, we're still in the middle of kind of designing and planning them. So watch the website and other online spaces as things start to come together. Because if you're local to the church, or if you're deciding to just flee the United States and become local to the church, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, come hang
Stop.
out with us. It's gonna be fun. Otherwise, online, we're not doing too much lately. Back to Basics is continuing. If you are a member of our Discord server, our live streamed Back to Basics episodes on the Gospel, beginning with Mark, happen at the first week of every month. And if you are a member of our Discord server, you can catch that. And I just realized that I actually screwed up and did not make this server a Discord, the most recent one, a Discord exclusive. I accidentally made that public. Oh dear. Oh well. They're usually Discord exclusive unless I screw up. But hey, we're a church. Mistakes happen. Um, Other than that, if you can do what Courtney tells you to do, you would be a
Like, share, and
better.
subscribe,
That's the
please. Feed the
one.
algorithm.
Yes, please feed the algorithm to keep us in front of eyes. It helps. But most importantly, you have yourselves a wonderful and blessed week, and we will catch you on the next episode. Bye, y'all.
Bye.